Boom, we're going. What's up, JT?
All right. What's up?
How's it going?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Doing good. So I found you on Instagram. You have what's it called? SpaceX updates, is that right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, SpaceX updates. And so you just who are you? What do? You just follow SpaceX? You're just interested in them?
Yeah. I follow him everywhere. I'm a huge fan, and I started the account in June, and it was more of just like a for fun type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed that there weren't many accounts or anything that would say about a launch or give updates about it. So I just started it from there.
Okay. Right on. Do you have a SpaceX hat on?
Yes, I do. Yeah. I got the Occupy Mars shirt on too
Oh, damn.
that I
Nice,
got.
dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're hooked up. Sweet.
I got in and I went to Florida in July, and we went down there and we went to Kennedy Space Center, and I got the stuff from there. We
Oh,
saw
okay.
uh, we saw the hangars, SpaceX hangars, and it was pretty cool to see. And I saw where Falcon Heavy lifted off from, and that was pretty sweet.
Wow, cool. So is that just like you can take a tour there or something?
Yeah, we did a bus tour, so we went to the visitor center, went through out there, and then got on a bus, and they took us out to the launch pads and saw all that. It was pretty
Oh,
cool.
okay. Right on. That sounds
Yeah,
fun. I'd be down. I want to check that out.
yeah.
Okay. Well, let's talk some SpaceX then. Let's just see what's going on. So, I have like a fairly good understanding of it, but it's not like I don't
Hmm.
keep up on all the news and everything.
Yeah,
I read, God, who was it? Some guy had he writes these really long blog posts, and he wrote like
hmm.
a really good, um, like whole Elon Musk series. Oh,
Yeah.
waitbutwhy.com.
Wait, but why?
Yeah. So he's really good. He wrote a huge thing. So I read his whole SpaceX, post, which was it was like a freaking book. But that was,
Yeah.
I think he wrote that like 3 years ago. So that's kind of like where my knowledge ends.
Hmm.
Um, and I'm sure like a lot of people are kind of similar where they have like an idea of what SpaceX is, but not a super understanding.
Yeah.
So, can we just kind of start with maybe like a basic overview history kind of thing of SpaceX and like their different
Yeah.
rockets and all that stuff?
So SpaceX was started in 2002 by Elon Musk, and he, I think, I read he wanted to make space cheaper because obviously space is pretty expensive to go to.
Right.
And he wanted to make it cheaper. So he wanted to buy these Russian missiles and try to use those or Russian components. And he said it was way too expensive. So he said it was cheaper for him just to start his own company. And that's when he founded SpaceX. And their first few employees, I think he said there was like 9 employees maybe, and they designed the Falcon 1. It was
Hmm.
a two-stage rocket, and they launched from this island out in the Pacific. I forget what it's called. It's like Kawana, some atoll or something like that. And
Right.
they started the Falcon 1, and the first launch of Falcon 1 did not go as planned, and it blew up after launch. And they tried it again about a year later, and that one blew up too. And then they tried again, and that one failed. And Elon was down to one last launch, and he had enough money for one more launch. And if that did not work, SpaceX would have just been nothing. And the launch worked, and that's how SpaceX was born, pretty much.
Hmm.
And he started the company. He gave it a 10% chance to be successful. And now you look at it, and they're a multi-billion-dollar company, just like that.
Hmm. Yeah. So it really came down to that last launch. Wasn't it kind of like, um, it was kind of like that was his last launch, like his last opportunity really to keep the company afloat, and it worked.
Yeah.
But then it wasn't like Tesla going through a similar thing at the same time. Do you know about that?
Yeah, Tesla. Yeah, I'm not sure much about Tesla, but he has had problems with it, with money, and I know there was recently he had a problem with the funding for it and was about to take it private, and then he didn't. But
Right.
yeah, it's similar.
Yeah. It's crazy how he just puts everything on the line like that. Like it seems so
Yeah,
like the company seemed huge today and stuff, but yeah, back then it was pretty
yeah.
risky. Crazy.
And
Yeah.
then after that, they got a contract from NASA to launch to the International Space Station for commercial resupply missions. And from there, SpaceX started to grow, and they developed the Falcon 9 and the Dragon spacecraft that goes up to the space station. And NASA awarded them, I think it was a $2 billion contract or something like that, a lot of money, to
Mm-hmm.
launch missions to the space station. And that's what they're currently doing. And the Dragon just arrived today, too, on the space station. There was a mission launched 2 or 3 days ago.
Oh, right. It went to the International Space Station, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And the Falcon 9, they designed to be fully reusable. So I'm sure you've seen it where they've landed their first stage rockets on launch pads or landing pads and stuff like that. And there was a problem with the Falcon 9 the other day where one of the things that it uses to steer, it stalled and it landed in the ocean and was not supposed to. But they
Right.
still recovered it.
Yes. Okay. So it was supposed to come back down and land whatever
Hmm.
vertically again, but it just didn't. It was it like planned to go in
Yeah.
the ocean on like a malfunction like that, or did it just happen to go in the ocean? Do you know?
Yeah, it said that they planned or they programmed the Falcon 9 to land in the ocean and purposely miss the landing zone if it detected a problem to keep
Okay.
people on the ground safe.
Yeah. 'Cause that'd be
Yeah,
kind
that
of
wouldn't be good if the
a
blow up on
SpaceX
the pad.
rocket comes flying down at you. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
good.
and just big explosion. They did have problems though. When they first started to land them in 2015, they were trying to land them on the drone ship out in the ocean, and the first couple of times they would just land it softly on the ocean, and then they incorporated the drone ship into it, and that didn't work out too well. The first couple of times it would explode right when it hit it, it'd either go too fast or it'd miss it or stuff like that. And when they first got it, it was the Orbcom, I think it was 2 mission. It was at night, and the webcast was insane because the SpaceX employees were cheering and just basically crying when they saw that thing landing vertically on the drone ship.
Right. Is it what do
And
you say? Is it the drone ship? Is that what you're saying?
yeah, they have a autonomous ship. So like it's about, I think they said it's a football field long,
Mm-hmm.
and it's programmed just to land straight onto that. And they have the one that's in stationed in the Atlantic is called Just Read the Instructions. Or no, sorry, it's Of Course I Still Love You. That's what they named that one. And then the one on the West Coast is Just Read the Instructions. So Elon likes to make it fun, and he even made or named the Falcon 9 after the Millennium Falcon from Star Wars. So
Yes. Nice. Good move, I think.
what really caught my eye with SpaceX was the Falcon Heavy launch in February. I knew who they were. I knew they were sending stuff up to the space station, and they were a good company. But watching the Falcon 9 land both of the core boosters at the exact same time was an unbelievable thing to see. And just think that people could do that with rockets. And usually companies will just throw rockets out in the ocean. They separate them and then they just go in the ocean and sink. They don't use them ever again. And they're losing billions of dollars doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Elon said that he wanted to save money, and they're saving millions and millions of dollars by reusing these rockets.
Yeah. Well, he attacks it like very logically, where if you want to make space travel affordable and practical, you have to reuse the rockets,
Hmm.
just like you do reuse an airplane, you know?
Yeah, that's
S-
what he would like it to be. Would be reusability,
Yeah, you
and
have to.
he would also like to reuse the fairings that cover up the payloads. And they have a ship called Mr. Steven that has a huge net on it, and it goes out and tries to catch them. They haven't caught him yet, but they're very close to doing that.
Yeah, I saw that thing. It's hilarious. Like it's just
Yeah,
it looks like a toy. Like here, let's look at a picture of this thing real quick because it's like here, let me share my screen. It's literally just like a huge what's it called?
Mr. Steven, it's called.
Like it's literally a huge ship with a net on top of it, just strung over the whole
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
It's ridiculous.
I think he enjoys it a lot doing that.
Yeah. Like it literally just catches them. Like what is it catching?
It's catching the fairings that are on top of the rockets. So on rockets, they have the payload fairings that protects the satellite or whatever's in it for
Uh-huh.
atmospheric when it's going up, and it protects it from heat. And when it's out of the atmosphere, they just take them off and they fall into the ocean. Same thing with like first stages; they don't use them ever again. And they would save $6 million if they were to reuse those again. So that was his plan. And SpaceX's plan was to try to go out and catch those. And the fairings have parachutes on them too, so they just float down from space. And Mr. Steven tries to catch them. They've been very close, but they have not got it yet.
Right. So if they don't catch them, they just fall in the ocean and sink down?
They recover them, but they can't use them again. Um,
Oh.
there was a mission last week or 2 weeks ago where it almost caught them and they landed in the ocean, but Elon said that the salt water didn't affect them as much as they thought, so they might be able to reuse those. But the saltwater components is really hard on rockets, which
Mm-hmm.
water is on electronics too. So
Yeah.
he plans to do that. And there was a theory that he could reuse the second stage, but in order to do that, the second stage would have to slow down way too much, and it would lose way too much fuel for re-entry, and it would have to have a shield too. And he said it wasn't practical; it wouldn't be able to work well.
Okay, so there are still some components that just aren't really recyclable.
Yeah, like basically the whole rocket is recyclable except the second stage,
Okay.
but they are required to, after their payload is put into the orbit, they are required to deorbit the second stage to reduce space debris.
Yeah, there's like a
And
lot of space trash and crazy stuff up there, right?
yeah, it's everywhere. There's probably millions of pieces up there that are just floating around, and that's one of the things with the space station too. They have to be on standby for orbital maneuvers. If they see a piece of debris coming, they would have to move the station around. And there's been a couple of times where a space shuttle has hit space debris, and they said that this one shuttle hit a micrometeorite and was probably the size of a grain of dust, and it cracked the front window of this shuttle. It was going so
God
fast.
damn. Yeah, that's crazy. That stuff is freaking scary. Do you know if it's like getting worse? Is there more debris that's being put up there every day?
Yeah, every time we launch, there's just more and more debris getting put up there, and it doesn't make it better that I think it was in 2009, two satellites collided together. It was the Iridium 33 satellite and a Russian spy satellite, and they were projected to miss by like, I think it was 800 meters or something like that. And they were wrong, and they smacked into each other and created millions of more pieces of space debris that's untrackable.
Dear God. So wait, so
Yeah,
it's untrackable. They can't really tell when it's coming, or can they?
the pieces that are large enough they track them. The U.S. Air Force tracks them,
Uh-huh.
but pieces that are probably the size of dust or paint or something like that, they cannot track. It's just too little.
Yeah.
And
But that
something
stuff's still
like that,
dangerous.
yeah, something like that, that small, going at 17,000 miles an hour, will do serious damage to a spacecraft.
Holy crap. So that seems like a horrible, like what are we
Yeah.
gonna do? Can we fix that? Can we clean it up? Do you know?
SpaceX wanted to build a sort of space vacuum type of thing. I don't know really how they were going to do it,
Mm-hmm.
but it had a big net, sort of, kind of like Mr. Steven, but with like fibers, and it would just go out in orbit and it would sweep and collect all the space debris, and it'd collect it all up, and then it would just re-enter and burn it all up in the atmosphere. And
Oh.
multiple
Oh.
companies have thought about doing that, but I don't know how they would do that. It'd be too much, I think.
Yeah, that seems like so crazy. But like if it's just getting worse and worse, something has to be done,
Mhm.
right? And the more that we go up to space, the more of a problem it's going to become for us.
Yeah, it's space is just like trash on Earth. It's just cluttered with debris, and you just have to, like, it's crazy that they had to track all of that debris, and there's just hundreds and thousands and millions of pieces that are up there.
Yeah. Got it. Such like it's crazy. Like how many humans have been to space? Like, I don't know, less than 1,000?
Yeah, yeah,
And
probably
how much,
300.
yeah, like how much freaking crap we have up there already? Like, we haven't even been there really.
Yeah,
And
we've
we've
only
polluted it so bad.
we've only been there for what, 60 years, maybe not even
Yeah, right.
about 60 years.
God damn.
And there was a NASA mission in, I think it was through the 60s. They wanted to put these little needles about this big, metal needles in space to have faster communications with their military during the Cold War. And it was called Westford Needles. And they would send up these rockets and they would just disperse all these needles in space. And they are still all up there, just floating around the ionosphere.
What the hell? So they actually
Yeah.
did that.
Yeah.
Jeez.
They
So,
they stopped it a couple years after they started it, but they put up a lot of little needle-like things to bounce radio signals back quicker.
okay, I see. So it had a use for them then, but they just did they know what they were doing, do you think, with the creating
I
so
don't
much debris?
I don't think so. I don't think they were really thinking about it, but now they're like, "Ooh, that was a bad idea to do that." We
Oh my God. Jeez,
put up a
yeah.
bunch of little needles in space, and now we're gonna have to worry about that hitting other spacecraft and satellites.
Right. Man, that shit's scary.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so you were talking about before all the different, like stages of a ship, and
hmm
how it works. Can you kind of give me an overview of how that all works?
So most rockets are second two stages. So they have one first stage, and then when that's out of fuel, they'll disperse that and go off with the second stage. And I'll just use the Falcon 9 for example. The Falcon 9 uses liquid oxygen and rocket grade kerosene for the fuel. So you have those chambers and they combust, and then it has the 9 Merlin engines. So when the first stage runs out, it will, or actually SpaceX will leave about 33% fuel left into their first stage for reentry and landing burns.
Okay.
They will do that, separate, and then the second stage is more of an efficient engine. It has one vacuum engine. So a vacuum engine is different from a sea level engine. Sea level engines have more thrust but less efficient fuel. But then since you don't need much thrust in space, since it's a vacuum, you need a lower thrust engine, and that won't use as much fuel. But there were concepts of a single stage to orbit spacecraft, and they really didn't work much. It would require so much fuel to get up there, and it's just more cost efficient and fuel efficient to just use stages on
Okay.
rockets rather than one stage.
Okay.
And they just, I don't know. I think second stages are a lot better. Sec- uh, First stages, like if you were to go with a single stage to space, like I said, it would just be way too much fuel. And they thought about that with the space shuttle. They thought about doing it with one stage only, and then they incorporated the boosters and other shuttle engines.
Uh-huh. Okay, so they have looked into it and thought about it, but it just doesn't seem it's just not as good for
Yeah,
various reasons, huh? Okay.
yeah, it's just not. It'd be way too. The rocket would be way too heavy, and it just wouldn't work as well as a multi-stage rocket.
Okay. So just to kind of summarize, so the first stage is where the big rockets are to kind of get it going up and like
hmm
out of the atmosphere and stuff.
hmm
And then that falls off and that comes back down and lands, right?
Yep.
That lands like vertically back down on the whatever.
Yeah, SpaceX is the only rocket company to land orbital class rockets. There is another company that Jeff Bezos founded called Blue Origin. They
Hmm.
haven't had a orbital mission yet. They just have suborbital, which is they go up, they get out into space, and it just comes right back down.
Hmm.
And their rocket is the New Shepard. No, what is it? New Shepard. It's the New Shepard rocket. It's it has one engine, and they land it similar to SpaceX, but SpaceX just I think is a lot more advanced. I mean, you have this rocket that's going up into space. It'll flip back around and then propel itself this way back to land, make a reentry burn, because if it doesn't slow itself down before the atmosphere, it'll just burn up and blow up. So it has
Hmm.
to do that, and then the precision that it requires in programming and coding and all that to land a 19-story tall rocket onto a little landing zone is just insane.
Yeah.
And to be able to reuse those is just, it's insane. I mean, NASA will throw away billions and millions of dollars of space shuttle parts, and like the Saturn V, I mean, that rocket cost billions of dollars, and the only thing that came back was the command module, just a little tiny little module on the top.
So why did NASA and previously did they just not think that was possible? Like why weren't they doing what
Yeah,
Elon's doing now?
people, when SpaceX first put the landing legs onto their rocket, people literally laughed at it. They were
Uh-huh.
like, this isn't going to work. Like, how are you going to land a rocket? And they never gave up, and they did it, and they showed the world that you can reuse rockets like you can an airplane. And that's what
Yeah.
SpaceX's philosophy is to make space travel almost like going on an airplane, like routine, and being able to fly 10 times a day on the same airplane and not
Hmm.
have to, and only refuel. And that's it.
Yeah. So do you know why it like vertically lands like it took off instead of coming in maybe like an airplane with like like landing gear wheels or something?
Yeah, um, it would probably, if it was like a normal rocket and it had, like, here's a rocket for example, if it had fins on it right here to land, kind of like the space shuttle did, it
Yeah.
would probably be too much weight on it, and it wouldn't be practical than it would be to just make it a rocket and just to stage off from there. But
Okay.
obviously, the space shuttle would enter like an airplane, and the space shuttle would just glide. It didn't use any fuel. It would just use the atmosphere to slow itself down.
Okay. That's
And
why it had those wings and fins, right?
yeah, it wouldn't use any fuel on the way down. It would just use just drag, and it would
Hmm.
just glide down. But with SpaceX, they propulsively land theirs with their rocket engines. So
Okay.
during reentry, they use 3 engines, and then for landing, they use one.
Okay. So you're essentially using the same equipment to take off and land, so it's just more efficient. There's less stuff to carry and everything, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
and if the payload is more heavy, they will land it out in the drone ship that's stationed out in the ocean. But
Yeah.
if it's a lighter, like the Dragon spacecraft, they will boost it back. They will flip it back around and then boost it back to Florida, and it'll land there.
So will it land where it took off?
No, not yet. They plan to do that with their bigger ship called the Starship,
Uh-huh.
and they say with practice and more practice, basically, it will be able to land back on the launch pad, and they would just
Yeah.
have to attach a second stage, refuel it, and they could just launch it again the same day. And that would be an insane thing to see.
Yeah. That's literally it's like an airplane at that point almost.
Yeah, they plan to do that with the Starship, which is the ship they plan to send to Mars. It'll land straight back onto the launch pad, and they would just put another ship on top of it and refuel it, and off it goes the same day.
Okay. Man, that's cool. Okay. So we got the first stage. I understand that how that works. And then the second stage, so the first stage they go up, the first stage falls off and comes back down and lands.
Hmm.
And then the second stage has a smaller vacuum engine that
Yeah.
just kind of like is that more for like once it's out of the atmosphere of the earth to kind of like
Hmm.
direct it to where it's going to go?
Yeah. It when it gets out of the atmosphere, the second stage does all the work. It will put the payload into a parking orbit, basically, and when it's in a good orbit, the second stage will detach from the payload, and the payload has like a little engine that I've seen in live streams where it'll just blast it a little bit away from the second stage, and then the satellite will have thrusters on it or whatever it's on it, and use that to make its desired orbit, and the second stage will just come back in the atmosphere and burn up.
Okay, so it comes back and just burns up and then it just like literally disintegrates. We don't nothing happens to
Yep.
it.
You
Wow.
can sometimes you'll be able to see it if you're in the exact right spot. You'll If it's nighttime, you'll see a little fireball, and it'll just break apart, and that's all it does. It just dies.
Okay, cool. So that's not giving us any more space debris or polluting the earth
No,
or anything like that. Okay.
they didn't used to do that though with second stages. They would just leave them up there, and there was no way to
Yeah.
get them back down. But companies now like ULA, their SpaceX competitor, and NASA and other rocket companies, they will intentionally deorbit the second stages, so reducing space debris.
Okay. Gotcha. And then so when we're talking about like the first stage and second stage, or for the first stage, that's when you're talking about all the Falcon rockets, right?
Hmm.
Okay. And there was
So
so there were go ahead.
the Falcon 9 uses the Merlin engine. So there's 9 of them, thus
Uh-huh.
the Falcon 9. And what were you gonna say? Yeah.
Well, I was just asking. So it started with the first stage was just like the Falcon 1, which was just like one
Hmm.
Falcon rocket or
Hmm.
rocket or
It had
engine.
it had
What's the
it had one engine. That's Falcon 1. It had one engine.
okay? And then the Merlin. What's the difference between the Merlin and the Falcon 9, or is that the same thing?
The Falcon 9 uses 9 Merlin engines as
Oh,
its thrust, so that's how it gets its name.
okay, I see.
Hmm.
So, okay, that makes sense. And so now, pretty much, that's what they're using for all their stuff is the Falcon 9 Merlin stuff.
Yeah, except for Falcon Heavy, they test launched that in February, and that's when Elon put his Tesla on top of it and a little mannequin named Starman, and launched
Right.
that. And that used 27 Merlin engines, and that was the most powerful rocket to ever lift off when it did.
Holy crap. So
It
Falcon
was
Heavy, and that was
Yeah,
27 Merlin engines. Damn.
yeah.
Okay.
They basically strapped together 3 Falcon 9s and just strapped them together and put a second stage in the payload and launched that.
Holy
And
shit.
when that launched, Elon gave it a 50-50 chance to work or blow up. He honestly didn't. He didn't think it was going to work. He even
Uh-huh.
said in the news interview, he said, "I can't believe it worked. I really can't."
Yeah. Crazy. And so
And then
the
go ahead.
I was just gonna ask. So the benefit of using like a going from the Falcon 1 to the Falcon 9 to the Falcon Heavy is just you can get bigger payloads up out of the atmosphere,
Yeah,
right? Okay.
yeah. The more thrust you have, the heavier payload you can put up. So Falcon 1 had these tiny little satellites about 1,000, 2,000 pounds, but Falcon Heavy is capable of putting up, I think, 100,000 pounds into low Earth orbit, which is insane.
Yeah. Holy shit.
And it's also able to send, I think, 8,000 pounds to Mars. So that's a lot.
Yeah. So what did they do with the when he shot up his Tesla? Where is that thing going anywhere, or is that just orbiting somewhere?
It's in a sun synchronous orbit, so it's out of Earth orbit, but it's just orbiting around the sun, sort of like an asteroid.
Mm-hmm.
And a couple months ago or a couple weeks ago, its orbit just passed Mars's orbit, so it's out beyond Mars now, orbiting.
Okay, so that was to kind of show that they could launch, or that they could, yeah, send that much weight to Mars, basically.
Yeah, and I thought it was funny because Elon sent up a $400,000 car into space to Mars just because he could,
Yeah, right.
with a little mannequin on it named Starman that had his spacesuit on.
Yeah, it's hilarious. That's just the stuff he does, man. It's great. We love it.
Yeah, he also on the car there was a radio playing Space Oddity by David Bowie, and it's just on loop, playing and playing. But people were skeptical about because Elon said it would last a billion years orbiting the sun, and people were saying that the car would just melt in space and it would just disintegrate basically.
Hmm.
And SpaceX didn't really comment on that, but the live views that they had from Starman when it was going around Earth was insane. Seeing Earth just getting smaller and smaller and smaller while that little mannequin just drives away in his car.
Uh-huh. So was it literally just the car is floating in space? Is it like on anything or surrounded by anything?
It's on this sort of like cone type thing, and then it's mounted on top of the cone, and then it has these things that support the cameras. It has cameras pointing at it. But I'm
Okay.
not sure if they took the second stage off of it or the second stage is still attached. But the car is just floating out there into space.
So it's like a convertible roadster with it just like into space.
Yep, just floating out there, driving
Yeah, that's
into the
freaking
universe.
sweet.
Yeah.
God, that's great. I love that he does that. Okay, cool. So that'll make sense. So is there anything planned for after the Falcon Heavy? Is there a next something
Um,
next?
their spaceship that they plan on building it was called the BFR, and they just recently changed the name to Starship, which would match Starman and other SpaceX companies.
Hmm.
And that will have the Raptor engine, and that will use I think 32 Raptor engines, and the Raptor will use methane and liquid oxygen.
Okay, so that's a different fuel.
Yeah, methane I think will be more productive. I think they said, but liquid oxygen is the same thing they use with the Falcon 9. But with the Starship, they plan to launch it up, and then there's a second ship, huge ship that'll carry hundreds of people onto it. It will go into orbit. They will land the first stage of the Starship like they do the Falcon 9, except it will land directly back onto the pad. They will take a cargo ship, basically, with full of fuel, mount that on top, and then launch that again. And then when they're in orbit, they will dock with the other ship. It'll refuel, and then it'll be off to Mars or the Moon or wherever they plan to go.
Oh, okay, I see. So you kind of, oh, that's interesting. So so that way it's like a lighter. You can be like have a lot of supplies and weight
Yeah.
up in space and go a long distance, but it's lighter to lift off out
hmm
of orbit. Okay.
Since it doesn't use a second stage, it just uses the ship in general, it would have to have fuel to get to Mars. So they just designed that concept where they would launch the ship with people, and then they bring it back down and launch a fuel ship, and then dock that, and then the fuel ship will come back down and land too.
Okay. So is there a second stage with this then?
The ship is considered a second stage, but it doesn't have. I don't know. I don't really know how they consider that. It's just they have the first stage, and then on top of it is the ship in general. I don't. I
Okay.
don't think they classify it as a second stage. It might just be a first stage.
Okay, so there'd be the first stage that's, blasting off propelling the ship into outside into space out of orbit, and then that comes back down, like gets attached to basically just a big fuel tank, right?
Yep.
And then that goes up, fuels the ship that's up there, and then that can go off to Mars. And
Yep.
then does both that fuel tank and the first stage come back down?
Yeah, the fuel tank will come back down, and the first stage will too. And then
Uh-huh.
they just changed the design on the Starship, so it would have fins, sort of like the space shuttle would, but not as big, and it will come down like a glider now. They just had it before where it would just come straight down, but now they want to glide it and use more drag to slow it down and
Hmm.
propulsively land,
Okay.
like how the space shuttle sort of would, but it will land vertically, unlike landing strips like the space shuttle did.
Okay. And that's the first stage that's going to be doing that.
hmm
Okay,
And
I
or
see.
no, the ship will be. The first stage will land vertically, like the Falcon 9 will.
Okay, but the ship, when it comes back to Earth, will
It
land
will
like
land.
that.
Yeah. hmm
Okay, I see. That makes sense.
Same thing on Mars too. It'll land like that on Mars.
Oh, it'll land like an airplane, similar to an airplane.
It'll land like the Falcon 9 does right now. It'll land vertically on landing legs onto Mars.
The ship will.
hmm With all the people
Oh,
in it, and
okay.
they wouldn't have enough fuel to come back to Earth if they were to go
Yeah.
to Mars. So if you're one of the first people to Mars, you probably are gonna die on Mars. But SpaceX did think that they could make fuel on Mars using Martian components like what was it? Just using gases and mining, they would be able to make fuel to get back to Earth.
Oh, okay. Okay. Interesting. Because
And
yeah, you go on.
Elon planned to build colonies there too, so he'd have to make hundreds and thousands of components and structures to be able to have life there.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's like kind of his ultimate plan, wasn't it? Or the reason for starting SpaceX was to
Yeah,
colonize Mars.
he thinks that human life should be multiplanetary because we will eventually need to go somewhere else if something happens or we just blow ourselves apart with war, and you'd have to go to Mars and try to colonize that.
Hmm. Okay. Whew. If so, would we essentially have to figure out how to make fuel on Mars to get back, or is there a way to transport enough fuel there to get us back?
I'm not sure. I think you'd probably have to make fuel on Mars in order to get back, unless the spaceship will have enough fuel to uh, go to Mars, re-enter, land, and then get out of Mars' atmosphere, get in an orbit around Mars, and then come all the way back to Earth. But
Yeah.
I think he said, though, in order for us to get back, you will have to make fuel on Mars.
Right. That would make sense.
Yeah.
Whew. Holy crap.
Elon plans to go to a lot of places very
Yeah.
quickly, too. He, his timelines are just insane. Like, he plans to land a Falcon 9, refuel it, and then fly it again in under 24 hours.
Wait, say that again?
He plans to launch a payload up into space with the Falcon 9,
Yeah.
land the Falcon 9 back onto the launch pad or landing zone,
Uh-huh.
refuel it, put another payload on top of it, and launch that all under 24 hours.
Under 24 hours. Okay. Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah,
And so
his employees didn't like that.
yeah, man. I've heard working for him just freaking sucks. Like you have no life and no family. You're just like expected to work as hard as he does.
Yeah, that's my dream job is to work for SpaceX. I've always been interested in space since I was probably 5, and working for them would just be an awesome thing to do because I originally wanted to work for NASA as an aerospace engineer, but then I saw how SpaceX was just so advanced and how they could reuse everything. And then I think NASA just doesn't really care about the rockets so much. I mean, they do, but SpaceX cares more about cost efficient rockets and making companies able to send up satellites for a cheaper cost.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just they're just run differently. It seems like Elon really thinks of things practically. Like he has the goal and then he works backwards of how he's going to be able to do it. And because now SpaceX is making money now by delivering payloads up into space and satellites up into space for private companies and for NASA, right?
Yeah. They did have a contract with Iridium, which is satellite communications, and they launched 60 satellites, I think, for Iridium, and their last launch is coming up in a couple weeks for Iridium.
Oh, damn.
And
That's a
then,
lot.
yeah, SpaceX plans to have their own satellite constellation called Starlink, and that'll be communications, and they plan to send up about 3,000 satellites for that, which will be nuts.
Yeah. Okay, so that's called Starlink, you said?
Yeah, Starlink.
Okay,
It's
yeah.
still in develop. It's still in development, they said.
So what is that? What can you tell me about that? Do you know?
It will use it'll be similar to communications. SpaceX wants to have the whole world have secure and internet access wherever you go, in the ocean, middle of nowhere, deserts, everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And that will require 3,000 satellites, and they will just relay signals off of each other and beam them down to ground stations and provide internet for the whole world.
Okay. I see. And so is he doing that as like a SpaceX company or is he doing it for like, AT&T or something?
Yeah, it's a SpaceX funded program concept.
Oh shit.
Yeah, so that'll be a lot of money too.
Cuz that'll like eliminate the need for cell towers and everything like that, right?
Yeah, I'm surprised that companies haven't done that yet, where mobile phones would just be able to bounce off of satellites. But maybe there's some companies that are trying to do that, but SpaceX will eventually do it. But you would think by now we would have something where phones would just go off satellites instead of phone towers and losing reception in random spots in the world.
Right. Well, from what I've heard, they have satellite phones and stuff, but it's just
Hmm.
there's such a lag on them, right? Because it takes so long for like to go up to the satellite and come back. But these are like low Earth orbit ones that should be
Yeah,
quicker, right?
yeah, low Earth orbit, it'll just be a lot quicker. That's where the space station orbits. But if you have satellites, like most TV people, they will use geostationary satellites. So geostationary satellites will orbit Earth at the rate it spins. So it'll be above a spot on Earth, the same spot at all times, and not move anywhere. And
Oh,
that's what
okay.
they would use for TV.
That's what they currently use for TV?
Yeah, is geostationary satellites. So they'll put it up there and it's far away enough to where the speed it has is the same speed as Earth rotates. So the satellite will be pointing at one spot at all times on Earth.
Okay, I see. So you can just set up your satellite down here at the same spot all the time.
That's
Okay.
like what Dish and DirecTV and other companies use for their TVs.
Okay, so is it similar? Is that similar to what the Starlink will be?
Starlink, no, Starlink will be in low Earth orbit, and it will go around Earth at a much faster pace and be able to provide quicker TV and internet and phone access.
Okay, I
Which
see.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure why they need 3,000 of them, but I mean, Elon does what he wants. So if
Right.
he wants 3,000, he can send up 3,000, and he has the money for it.
Because they're trying to blanket the entire Earth with this stuff,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. They want to take out all the old satellites, all the old communication satellites, and just go off of Starlink and use that
Okay, because you'll be able to use these for communication for and okay,
internet and
internet,
yeah,
everything, and TV. Wow, shit, that'd be cool.
yeah.
Yeah, that seems huge. Like, do you know if Verizon or AT&T or anything like that are working on something similar or trying to get involved with that with him?
They might be, but maybe not. I'm sure they're trying to get their. They probably don't want their cell towers to be torn down because they spent money on those. But you're gonna have to make way for the future companies.
Yeah, because that's going to make their cell towers and their whole network right now irrelevant, right?
Yeah, they're gonna go out of business, and SpaceX will be on the top of communications.
Yeah, holy crap. That seems like a huge thing. Yeah, whoo. That'll almost be
Yeah,
like a monopoly though.
yeah, it would. SpaceX basically is a monopoly right now, sort of with private space. Their only competitor is United Launch Alliance and Blue Origin with Jeff Bezos. But Blue Origin plans to just be space tourism, so they'll send 3 or 4 people that'll pay a lot of money to go on their rocket and then float in space for a little bit and then just come straight back down.
Well, that sounds fun
Which,
though.
which, yeah, I mean, it sounds like you do it, but I think it would only last like 10 minutes, and to pay thousands and thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars for 10 minutes, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there's people who will do it, but that just seems like a weird. I mean, that's
Yeah,
just got to be their way of getting more funding, more money, right?
yeah, they Blue Origin has a plan like SpaceX to send other stuff to Mars and stuff like that, but their plan too is to make space more cost efficient and less expensive to go to.
Okay. Is that kind of like Jeff Bezos's reason for starting Blue Origin, or was it
Yeah,
more?
um, I think he did it more as a hobby
Okay.
because he's the richest person in the world with like 200 billion, or I think his net worth is. He did
Hmm.
it more as a hobby, but Elon did it more as a helping humanity and people go to space and helping people save money and go to Mars.
Okay.
And that's why I like SpaceX and Elon a lot more, is because he did it for to help out others, and Jeff Bezos did it more of just for fun. Like, I have the money to do it, let's just do that.
Yeah. It's like such
Yeah,
a weird, crazy hobby to start.
just launch stuff into space and get money off of it.
Yeah. So, SpaceX and Elon's goal is ultimately to colonize Mars, and he calculated he needs like approximately like 1 million people on Mars to really have it self-sufficient and stuff, right?
Yeah, and obviously Mars is a lot smaller than Earth,
Mm-hmm.
and in order to live on Mars, obviously we can't live on Mars, we can't breathe the air. You'd have to have these domes that you'd have to live in. And they said that the biggest problem of going to Mars would be the people themselves being trapped in a closed container, metal container, going to Mars with a bunch of people might not be a good thing on their psychological thinking.
Yeah, for real.
Being secluded from everybody and trapped in a little container with hundreds of other people
Mm-hmm.
wanting to get out, and you're in there for about 9 months, I think it takes to get to Mars.
Oh, it takes 9 months?
Yeah, 9 months to send something to Mars ish. 6 to 9 months it'll take.
Just the one-way trip to Mars?
One way trip, yeah, just to get there. It'll take 9 months.
Oh, holy shit. I thought it was just like a couple months. Damn, that's a lot longer.
Yeah, it. it took 3 days to get to the moon. Even that, trapped in that little container, I'm sure probably got to their minds a little bit. But 6 to 8 months trapped in a container with hundreds of other people,
Yeah.
where anything can go wrong, that might not be good.
Yeah. It's going to be, it's like, initially it's not going to be great. Just like colonizing, any new land, right? Where it's
Yeah,
shitty. You're building just like the infrastructure and utilities and all that kind of crap. But I guess ideally it would have to kind of eventually turn into kind of like a space cruise ship type of thing where there's a bunch of things to do, keep you occupied. It's
yeah.
nice. There's restaurants and all that kind of stuff, huh?
There was a picture that Elon posted on his Instagram account, which he deleted for some reason. But
Oh.
it was a picture of this girl playing the violin, and
Hmm.
she was wearing this big long white dress, and it had people sitting down, and it had Earth in the windows. And he said that during the trip to Mars, there would be violin concerts to occupy the people.
Violin concerts. Okay. That's a weird specific thing to
Yeah,
come up with.
the ship itself looked more of like a hotel. It had separate cabins where 2 to 3 people would stay in, and then it
Mhm.
obviously would have bathrooms and eating areas. But you'd have to send up a lot of food to get to Mars and have enough food to live on Mars.
Yeah. Man, it's going to be crazy to really colonize it and get a million people there. It's going to have to be pretty enticing and almost like it's going to have to be enjoyable and nice to go there, right?
Yeah,
Because like initially, I'm sure they'll have pioneers who just want to go because they want to kind of explore it and have the adventure and do all this kind of stuff and be known in history. But that's you're not going to get millions of people there that way, do you think?
no, there's people that have signed up, like NASA's new astronaut crew. They had 18,000 applicants sign up to be an astronaut, and only 12 of them were selected.
Oh, okay.
And those astronauts would be the ones going to Mars, and they basically signed up to die because they know they're not going to be able to come back from Mars with enough fuel.
Hmm.
And Elon said he would like to die on Mars, but just not on impact.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. He wants to retire on Mars, right?
Yeah, he
Yeah.
wants to die on Mars, but just not on impact.
Yes. That's a good clarification. Whew,
Yeah,
damn. Yeah, this stuff is crazy. It would be it'd be fun to see this happen, but freaking crazy.
yeah.
Um, yeah, man, I don't know. So what do you think? Would you go to Mars?
Uh, I think I would. I think I would. But
Yeah.
I say that now, but when the time comes, I'll be like, I don't know. I'm good here on Earth. I don't want
Yeah.
to go off to another planet in space and die. But if it was survivable and you didn't need other like zones and habitable domes to live in, I probably would. I think it'd be an awesome thing to go to a different planet.
Wait, so you would go if you didn't need the domes?
Yeah, I mean that's not going to be for thousands of years probably, but maybe I would go with the domes. But I think life when it first starts out there would be kind of tough. You're just going to mostly be building how humans did on Earth. You'd just be building and trying to survive and find different things to live easier.
Mm-hmm.
But Elon's timeline, I think he said it will be in about 10, 20 years. They plan to go to Mars, which would be about 2030, 2040s. And I think that might be a little bit too soon. But we did go to the moon within 10 years after John F. Kennedy said that we were going to. So it's possible.
Mm-hmm. Damn. So that means going to Mars and having people stay and colonize and live on Mars for like the rest of their life, basically.
Yeah, you will. Yeah, you just live there for the rest of your life and start a new human civilization on a different planet.
Yeah. Whew. I mean, it would be an adventure for sure.
Yeah, and humans are just curious like that. Like we've explored Earth, we've explored the moon, and that's as far as we went. We just want to keep going farther and farther and farther out into the universe.
Mm-hmm.
And another plan that, or concept or theory that people have is to go to a different solar system and try to find a planet there to live on.
Mm-hmm.
But for that, require light years of time, like millions of miles, and a light year would be traveling at the speed of light. So if a star's 20 light years away, you'd have to be traveling at the speed of light for 20 years straight to get there.
Yeah. And
And
is it even possible for humans to travel at the speed of light? Can we do that?
not yet, no. We have not found a way to travel at the speed of light. People have said it's impossible. It's the fastest thing ever is the speed of light. So like the sun is 93 million miles away, and it takes 8 minutes for the sun's light to get to Earth.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to go that far, people would have to be put into hibernation and sleep and throughout the whole trip. And there's been movies like that, like I think it was Interstellar or Passengers, where people would be in these little pods and they would just sleep and their body would be basically frozen. And then when it's time to wake up, they wake up and they go to the different planet.
Yeah. But is it like, can we, I guess maybe we don't know, but is it like physically possible for humans to travel at the speed of light, to move that fast?
Not yet. No, I don't think it's physically possible. I mean, the speed of light is, I forget how many thousands of miles per hour. I think it's like 300,000 miles an hour. Maybe I'm way short or way over, but it would just be insane. And I don't even know how much fuel would be required to do that.
Yeah. Because I think doesn't a bunch of crazy stuff happening when you get going that fast that physics
Yeah,
doesn't. It's different, right?
G forces would be insane on your body, and you'd just be crushed like a pop can.
Yeah. Whew. Okay.
Like how the ocean pressure, like how ocean pressure is, you'd just be straight crushed.
Yeah. Whew. So that's a long time away. So right now we got Mars to focus on, though.
Yeah, we got Mars, and right now SpaceX is just building up their money for their ship to fund. So right now, with their companies that they're partners with sending up, they're saving up that money to build their Starship, which they started construction in last summer out in the
Really?
LA area. It's in the LA area at the LA port, ship port, and they have to build it there because it's so big that they would have to transport it on ships.
Oh shoot, that's like I live pretty close to that. I can see it I walk a block and I can see that port.
Oh, really? Well, I don't know if it's unmarked or not, but they are building it in at LA Port right now.
Whoa, that's cool.
Yeah, and they had pictures of it compared to a person, and they had this one tank, and the person looked like a little ant compared to this fuel tank for how massive this ship is going to be.
Holy shit. Okay, wait. I'm gonna look up a photo of that. What's it called?
The previous name was BFR. They just changed it to Starship, so it's just BFR was the older name.
Okay, so let's see. So what should I search? Like BFR
SpaceX
build.
or LA Port or something.
Okay. And this thing's gonna carry hundreds of people, ideally, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then would it carry? So they're gonna have to do. Oh, is this what you're talking about?
Yeah, that's yeah, and then the one on the left is the hangar or something they're building it in.
Okay.
The tour, and then you can see all the cargo ships and stuff like that.
Yeah. Interesting. Oh, what's this?
There's Falcon Heavy. I saw that hangar when I went to Florida.
Oh, okay. Cool.
And that was so
Damn.
cool to see.
Yeah, this thing is huge.
And then if you
Wow.
look up pictures of the BFR, it'll show you just the scale and size of it.
Woo!
So there's it all on Mars and all the colonies.
Yeah, look at that thing. Oh, that's a cool image. It's just like a rendering thing.
Yeah, imagine seeing that in real life.
Yeah. God damn. So there's the dome that everyone would live in.
Mm-hmm. And then you have
solar
the landing
panels.
pads. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, you need a lot of those.
Damn.
There's a person for scale in the bottom left corner
Oh yeah, look at that.
of how huge that's going to be.
Yeah. It looks similar to, the NASA shuttle.
Yeah, it does look similar, except it has 3 wings instead of just 2.
Yeah.
There's the first stage in that one picture going back down to land.
Where's it? This one?
The one, yeah.
This one.
I think, yeah.
Oh, okay. Damn. This is cool. This stuff is freaking sweet.
Yeah,
So do they
I
have any
love
like
everything about it.
interior mock-ups of that?
I believe so. I think Elon did release interiors of it. Yeah, right there's a good one.
Oh my God. Oh, so will
Yeah.
it be like rotating to give, the sense of gravity?
Yeah, I think they would do that in sci-fi movies. They would do that, and they said it's physically possible to make gravity on a ship just by rotating it.
Okay, so that is actually possible.
Hmm.
Oh man, this thing is cool.
Yeah, I think it'd be cool to live on that.
Yeah, it literally looks, I mean, it looks like a little hotel kind of like cruise ship type of deal.
There's a picture right there. It's a black sphere. That's their tank that they built for it, and there's a person right there for scale.
That's the fuel tank.
Yeah,
So would that be on um the Starship, or would that be for the first stage
both
rocket?
of them. It would be inside of both of them.
Oh shit. So they would both have this. And
Yeah.
this is what they would send up the second um like fueling ship to fuel up this, right?
Hmm.
Okay, I
Yeah,
see.
they would fuel that up and then take that to Mars.
Yeah. Damn, dude. So what would I mean, I guess we don't know for sure, but what do you think like kind of the daily life on Mars would look like? You would have to stay to not have a spacesuit or whatever. Like you couldn't
Hmm.
go outside without a spacesuit, right?
Yeah, yeah. Hmm.
Okay. And why is that? Just because just for air to breathe proper air?
Yeah, the atmosphere is mostly carbon dioxide, and there's not much oxygen. There's a little bit of oxygen, but not a lot at all. And you would just basically suffocate if you did not have a spacesuit on.
Okay. And isn't the atmosphere of Mars a lot thinner than Earth's?
Yeah, that's why they would have to require more fuel to land on Mars because they'd have to slow down a lot more and a lot more quickly because there's not enough atmosphere to slow down. Like the space shuttle did with the Earth's atmosphere, it'd use that to slow down.
Hmm.
But with Mars, it's a lot more thin.
Okay. But it would make coming back to Earth taking off easier then too, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
Okay. Wow. And then okay, so you'd be kind of is the idea just to live in these big domes that would be like pumped full of oxygen and we could walk around without any spacesuit in there, right?
Yeah, and then immediately after you go outside, you have to have the suit on, or else you just die.
Yeah. Man, yeah, these domes would have to be freaking huge and have like I mean, what would they have like little parks and trees and stuff inside of them?
Yeah, have you ever seen the movie The Martian with
Uh
I
who's in
forget
that
his
one?
name,
Oh,
Matt Damon?
Matt Damon, where he gets stuck on
Yeah,
Mars, right?
yeah. I read the
Yeah.
book and the movie. The author of that book made sure that everything was scientifically correct. Like this could work on Mars, and him growing potatoes in his own crap would actually work on Mars if he had the right resources and how he made water and how he watered them and kept the soil fertilized.
Right.
But doing that, it would just take so long to get Mars to look like Earth. I mean, it'd take thousands or even millions of years to do that, and you'd have to use generators and other things. Excuse me, to do with oxygen and make oxygen and make the air breathable and plants to survive. And you'd have to get water on Mars too, because right now there's no water on Mars.
Okay, so you're talking are you talking about like that to get that like in a dome, like in a big thing for us, or to kind of like terraform the whole planet?
That and to terraform the whole planet, even in like the dome. I mean, the dome would be a lot easier, but to terraform the whole planet, it would just be insane. You'd have to have a lot of people and a lot of resources to do that.
Yeah. So what are they going to do initially for water when they first get there? What's the plan for that?
I think there's a lot of ice on Mars, and they plan to mine the ice and melt the ice to get water. But there have been Mars orbiters that have found ice on Mars, but just not flowing water.
Okay.
But another problem on Mars would be radiation, since the atmosphere is so thin. Um, they said that people would have to live in underwater, or not underwater, underneath the ground in Mars in these volcanic tubes that lava used to be in, and you just basically live in a cave like a caveman.
To protect yourself from the radiation?
Yeah, if there was no other way to protect yourself.
Okay, so can we build, like, if we do build the domes, can we build them
Hmm.
so they would block out that radiation?
Um, Probably you'd probably have to have a lot of shielding and metal and gold foil, which would reflect it off. But I think it would be possible for the dome. But other experts say that you'd have to live in a cave on Mars until it's safe enough to go out.
Holy crap. Until it's safe enough, meaning like until we can terraform it enough.
Yeah, yeah, and then save yourself from the radiation. But
Okay.
that was a problem they had with the Apollo missions was going through the Van Allen radiation belts. And those are just a little bit outside of Earth, and they try to take the shortest trip possible through them, and it was a 50-50 chance. If the astronauts survived it, they survived it, and if they could not handle the radiation, they just died from it. And that was one of the things they really had to look into with protecting the ship itself from radiation.
So what kind of stuff would happen if, you know, if the radiation was too strong or something? What would happen to the astronauts and to the ship?
The ship probably would just get disintegrated, maybe, and then the astronauts would just die. Like, you would just get radiation sickness, similar to like a atomic bomb,
Uh-huh.
and you would just not survive it.
But how quick would those kind of symptoms or whatever come on? Do you know?
I'm not sure, but I think for like the atomic bomb, for example, I think it took hours, maybe, or a couple of days for people to start to feel the sickness. And on Mars, it'll probably be about that too.
Holy crap. So this is
Yeah.
it's just like is the radiation just from the sun or what is it?
Yeah, it's from the sun because since Earth has a magnetic field, it'll block all the radiation. Some radiation gets through, but it'll block most of it. But I think
Hmm.
Mars has a weaker magnetic field, and without an atmosphere as dense as Earth's, it would just go straight through and hit the Martian landscape.
Damn. It's crazy how well like fine-tuned Earth is and how fine-tuned we are to live on it that
Hmm.
like for us to synthetically kind of create another Earth almost on Mars is like just such a huge endeavor and such a crazy thing to think about.
Yeah, I mean, being able to transform a planet like that would be insane. It'd be so cool, and I mean, I think you'd have to conserve some of it. Like, you can't just change the whole thing. Like, you have to be able to conserve a part of the planet to make it look like what it used to be, like orange Mars.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Wait, so say that again. You think you would need to preserve a part of Mars to not terraform?
I think if we were to terraform it, I think saving a bit of it would be a cool thing to do because you could see what Mars looked like before you terraformed it and see what you came from and what it looks like now.
Okay, I see. Just for like just to look back at it and like
Yeah.
it would just be cool, like a tourism kind of thing.
Yeah, sort of like how we have on Earth, like national parks or mountains or something like that.
Okay. I mean, would that even be possible though? Don't you kind of have to put a they would to terraform it, it would have to be like they would create an atmosphere that would go over the whole planet and everything?
Yeah, you might have to, I don't know, yeah. Now that you say that, they might have to just basically put Martian dirt in jars and save those or something. But if they
Yeah,
transform the whole planet, yeah, everything would just start to grow.
right. Whew. Crazy.
Elon
Man.
has very wild ambitions.
Yeah. Yeah, that stuff's gnarly. I don't think I would want to. I'm gonna enjoy watching people go to Mars from here and watching the broadcast of
Yeah.
it, but yeah, just talking through this, man, I have no like it would be insanely awesome to see all that stuff,
Hmm.
but I can see it through, photos and through the video that's sent. I don't need to go there because
Yeah.
it sounds freaking horrible and scary for a while.
Yeah, it's dangerous. Yeah, it's very dangerous to do that. I mean, even to go into space in general, it's very dangerous. But to go to a planet that's millions of miles away, where nothing is living there, it's just rock and robots,
Hmm.
people might not want to do that.
Yeah, especially if you can't come back, but yeah, ideally, because isn't there like a port like every I don't know 2 years or something like that where Earth and Mars are the closest together, and that's when they would do the trip, right?
Yeah, there's certain like orbital maneuvers that they would have to do. So like over summer, Mars was at its closest orbit with Earth, so Mars in
Mhm.
the sky was a bright orange dot, and I could
Right.
see it out every night, and it was just bright. And if you were to send it up now in like a random spot, it would not be fuel efficient to do it because you could use Earth's gravity to boost yourself, get like a gravity assist, and boost yourself to Mars from that.
Oh, okay.
So like
Wow.
when are you familiar with like the Voyager probes NASA launched in the 70s?
I mean, the name's familiar, but I'm not. I couldn't tell you what they were.
They were twin probes and they sent them up on separate rockets, but they sent them up when all of the outer planets were lined up exactly, and they said that it was a perfect opportunity to explore those planets. So they sent up Voyager. It would get gravity assists from Jupiter and Saturn and Uranus and Neptune and swing by all of those planets and take photographs of them, and that's what they did.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, they found a perfect opportunity with all the planets lined up, and they said we have to launch now, and they did, and they sent up two probes, and now those probes are actually into interstellar space, so they're out of
Oh,
the atmosphere into who knows where.
wow. Holy shit. So do we still have like contact with those at all or anything?
I don't believe so. I think the last contact was a couple years ago, but it would take, I think they said 26 hours or something like that for a radio signal to go from there to Earth,
Hmm.
and right now it's just still going.
Yeah. Whew, crazy. So how often do you know how often that kind of alignment happens? Was it just a really crazy lucky time or is
I
it
think it
fairly often?
was I think it was like every 100 and some years it would just line up like that, or maybe
Uh-huh.
even longer. But the yeah, it would take forever for those planets just to get exactly lined up again how they were.
Right. Damn, that's cool stuff. And that's what I was when I read that article on the wait but why thing, he was talking about how, once this all gets if this does get going and we have people colonizing Mars, like you couldn't like we couldn't Skype them or call them really because there would be such a delay in the signal.
Yeah, with NASA just landed a lander on Mars 2 weeks ago called InSight, and it'll measure like well they call them Mars quakes instead of earthquakes, but it would measure that to give an idea of what Mars looks like in the inside. And along with that, there were these two CubeSats. So CubeSats are probably like about that big, but these
Mhm.
ones were about the size of a briefcase. There were two of them, and they communicated with the lander and sent the signals back to Earth. And Earth communicated a lot quicker with the lander with those two satellites, and it cut down the delay time from Mars to Earth is about 8 minutes, I think they said,
Mhm.
and that cut it down
Mhm.
to exact timing, so they could see where the lander was at the exact same time.
Wait, okay, sorry, you cut out for a sec. Can you repeat that? What did it cut it down to?
It cut it down to real time, so they could see all the statistics and everything real time with those two CubeSats.
Whoa. Wait, so
Yeah,
how okay, I'm sorry. Can you explain how that's possible again?
they the two CubeSats communicated together. They were separate,
Uh-huh.
and then they sent signals, or the lander sent signals to the CubeSats, and then the CubeSats relayed it to Earth. And it was a lot quicker to do that because the CubeSats were just flying by Mars instead of orbiting it. And NASA does have a Mars orbiter, but during the landing of that lander, it was not in an ideal orbit to communicate efficiently with Earth, and it would take a lot longer to do that than it would be to just use the CubeSats.
Okay. Okay, I think that makes sense. But isn't the isn't the signal being sent back and forth? Isn't there like a time delay on that? Like aren't they traveling the speed of light?
They were lower than the speed of light. I think they were probably going about what it would take to orbit Earth, like about 17,000 miles an hour, maybe a little bit more.
Uh-huh.
But I'm not quite sure how they did it that quickly. But with the Mars orbiter, it would have taken a lot longer because of its orbit and where the lander was than
Yeah.
the CubeSats being right on top of it and sending it straight back to Earth. And it was also a test mission with those CubeSats too, because CubeSats were just thought to be like mini satellites. They're like this big, and there's a bunch of them around Earth right now. But they didn't think you'd be able to send it that far and for them to work, and it worked.
Oh, nice.
So I
Cool.
think they'll probably do that more often with interplanetary missions. they'll just send up CubeSats for better telemetry and data from the spacecraft.
Okay, that makes sense. Whew. Whew. Damn. Well, shoot, JT, that was good. I think I don't have any other questions. I think we covered everything I was kind of curious about. Yeah. Damn, dude.
Yeah,
How do you know
Elon,
so much about this stuff? Is it just you,
I
reading and learning on your own, or what are you doing?
yeah, I read and learn it on my own, but a lot of people at like my school, my friends, they'll like make fun of me for the topic, and I don't really know why. Like they'd be like, "Oh, did you see that rocket launch the other day?" I'm like, "Yeah, why?" Like I don't know. I got into it one night when I was with my uncle, and I was looking up at the stars. And I was probably about 8, and he said, "There's a space station up there that people go on, and they're living up there doing experiments." I was like, "Whoa!" I was like, I'm gonna have to go look that up. So I looked it up at home, and that's when it all started. And I got hooked from there.
Ooh, that's a good opening to a movie. If they ever do like a biopic on you, that's a good opening scene right
Yeah,
there.
just sitting up and looking up into the stars, and then going home looking at that, and then one day I'm an astronaut.
Yeah, that's good
But
stuff. That's good.
yeah, my dream is to work for SpaceX, do something with designing their rocket or something, or NASA or whoever it may be.
Cool. Right on, dude. Well, good luck with that. I'm sure it'll happen.
Thanks. I hope. I
Yeah.
got a long way to go
Yeah, but
to get where I want.
cool. Well, you can make it happen though. Cool. Well,
Yeah.
thanks for being on, talking all this stuff. It's fun. So
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
yeah, of course. So give everybody your Instagram account again, where they can follow you for SpaceX updates and stuff.
My Instagram account is at SpaceX_updates, and I just provide news about SpaceX and pictures from webcasts about previous launches. So if you would like to catch up with SpaceX or just SpaceX in general, I post a lot about that. And yeah.
Cool. Perfect. I'll throw a link to that in the show notes for people to grab. But yeah, man, that was fun. Appreciate you being on.
Yep. Thank you.
All right, dude. Have a good one. All right.
Yep. You too.
Bye.